Take care.
You're listening to the Inland Talk Express, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM, KCAA Loma Linda.
Alrighty, folks. Hey, welcome to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show. This is Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. I am your host, and you know what we're talking about today, note investing, because that's what I do, guys. You understand, financial intelligence is what I preach, but note investing is what I teach. Now, let me go ahead and for those of you folks listening in today, give a little disclaimer, guys. This here radio show is about opinions and stories from my past and also the past experiences of my guests. And so don't misconstrue any of this as legal investment advice or investment solicitation. Please seek out legal counsel and get the right people telling you what to do and what not to do if you're going to make any investment decision, including mortgage notes. But today I'm really excited, folks. I have my guest on, Dan Zitovsky, and we're going to get into some really fantastic information today on note investing and on how you can become prosperous and have a wonderful life by creating passive cash flow, right? So Dan Zitovsky, thank you so much, man, for joining me. I'm super excited about this show, and I know the audience is just going to get a ton of value from you today. So thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you, Patrick. It's great meeting you, and it's great talking to you and seeing what you guys are doing, and just to bring some value and some golden nuggets to the audience. And that's how we live abundantly and just live life at that higher purpose, helping other people do what we do over all these years. So it's a pleasure being on here, man.
Yeah. And, it's a pleasure just being able to link up with guys like you, right? I mean, doing this stuff for 25, 30 years, and you've done everything there is to do practically in investing, from owning rentals to flipping houses. And we're going to get into all that, right? And get into the story of Dan, which I know all you listeners are just going to absolutely appreciate. So if you were thinking of doing something else, folks, don't go anywhere. You're going to want to listen to this and listen to Dan's story. But Dan, if there's anybody that could help explain to the audience, what note investing is and why it's a cool thing. Most people don't even know that you can own someone's mortgage. They don't understand that when we talk about a note, we mean a note is a promissory note, right? That somebody fills out a promissory note, and that spells out their promise to repay a loan to the lender who lent them money so that they could buy a physical piece of real estate, right? And so, guys, and I'll let you help me explain this, Dan, to these guys, but real simply put, as best as I can put it, guys, is that instead of being a landlord, right, and buying a physical piece of property and then putting a renter in there so that you can collect rent, this is a little different, right? Because as a landlord, we got all the terrible T's, they call them, toilets, the tenants, the trash, and all the garbage you have to deal with as a landlord. So think of it as sort of very similar, but in many ways different. Instead of buying a rental house and putting a renter in there and collecting rent, we're actually buying a mortgage note, a promissory note, and we're going to be collecting monthly cash flow from that piece of real estate without actually owning the physical piece of real estate. So, Dan, can you help me explain a little bit more about that, maybe in an understandable manner for these folks? What's a mortgage note? Why are they really awesome investments that people should take a look at?
Sure, and you did, Pat. You did that was truly an amazing job explaining it. I don't know if I could do better myself, but let me just get on top of what you said with that. So essentially, I told it like this: you're either a landlord when you own a rental, or I call it either a lien lord or a loan lord, right? So you just have to lien. So I break it down. I ask people this one question. I said, "Do you have a mortgage? Do you own your house?" And yes or no. And they tell me yes or no. I said, "Who's the mortgage with?" And I'll get the Wells Fargo's, the Chase, the Bank of America's. And I said, well, let me ask you something. When your toilet bowl stuffs up and it overflows, do you call Bank of America and say, Bank of America, I'm not going to pay you because my toilet bowl is not working? They don't care. And not that we don't care, but we're not there. We don't own the house. So the difference is we do not own the house. Bank of America does not own your house. You own your house. They own the mortgage that secures your property. If you don't pay them, that mortgage allows them to foreclose and then take the property and sell it in the open market. So in all the caveats of real estate investing, I always go through where people generally will start. It's not for everybody, but people generally will start here. They'll become a wholesaler because it's the easiest point of entry, less risk, right? Then they turn around and they say, oh, wow, well, these people I'm wholesaling my property to, which just means you're assigning your contract, right? They're turning around and fixing those properties and flipping it. Those TV shows, fix and flip, they're making a lot of money fix and flipping. And you're like, well, I'm tired of fix and flipping, so I want to like build a rental portfolio. So you start with, then you go to rentals, whether it's single family, multifamilies, hotels, shopping centers, whatever it might be, you become the landlord, you're a rental. And then you get to the point where you talk about passive income, and that's not really passive income, right? I've owned them all. It's not passive income. It's great income. There's nothing wrong with it. And I still own a pretty good rental portfolio, but it's not passive income. The only way to truly have passive income in life, the only way is to become the bank. So think about it, to become the bank. So I can care less. I don't know what happens with your tenants. I don't know what happens with your property. Doesn't matter to me. That payment comes in every single month. And if it doesn't come in, the only thing I have to do is my attorney goes in there and he starts legal action. I literally do not have to do anything myself, right? So to be the bank. So that's the note investor, right? So you're investing in a promissory note. Like you said, you broke it down perfect, Patrick. It's a promissory note. So the two documents that most people see is a promissory note, which is a breakdown. This is our agreement. This is what I'm going to pay, how much I'm going to pay, how often I'm going to pay, what the payment is, what the rate is, right? What happens if you don't pay? The mortgage, where people get confused, is the document that is recorded against the property that if you don't pay, they actually can foreclose on you, okay? So we're investing in the paper. I call it the paper, not the bricks. People that own the property own the bricks. We own the paper behind it. And between what I just told them, what you told them, Patrick, I mean, I think we simplified as much as possible. Yeah. And I like living that passive life, the true prosperous life. So I can do my business wherever I want, whenever I want, and be with whoever I want and travel the world, because it doesn't matter where I am. I own the paper. People are making payments to my servicing company. My servicing company, ACH, is my account.
Yes. I mean, it's like, guys, like you said, it's like if you have a mortgage with Wells Fargo and you owe them money, for your house. If your roof leaks, if your water heater breaks, if you need lawn care, put in extra shrub, you're not calling the Wells Fargo banker to say, hey, and they're not calling you either to come out and try to assess the roof, are they? That's just not how the bank works. So yeah, it's so cool. If you can put yourself in the shoes of the bank, which is what in turn we do when we purchase one of these mortgage notes as an investment. They're literally transferring that mortgage debt and that responsibility that the bank owns over to you. Now you become the bank. So think about this, folks. You actually literally become Wells Fargo, so to speak, by way that you have those two documents, the promissory note, which spells out the terms of how the borrowed money is going to be paid back. And then you have the mortgage document. And what I laugh about this with people, Dan, all the time is that people think the bank gives us a mortgage, but it's actually opposite, guys. You give the bank a mortgage. And so what is that mortgage document? It's literally a piece of paper that you voluntarily pledge your house as collateral for the terms of that promissory note, right? So we understand this is that, folks, you have the promissory note. It says that your payment's going to be due on the 15th of every month. It says that if it's late, you got a late fee. It says that after 90 days, you're delinquent. It says all of this stuff, and it spells out how we're supposed to pay our home loan back to the bank. That's the promissory note. The mortgage document is a document you fill out, and then you give a mortgage to the bank because you're signing a document and handing it over to the bank that says they have the legal right to take back their collateral, which is your house, in case you don't pay them based on the terms of that promissory note. So we understand that's how it goes, guys. But it's so cool that, like Dan's saying, you don't ever have to really go to the properties, guys. This can be an investment that's done nationwide. A lot of people who own rental properties, act as landlords, want to have those properties right in their own backyard. So if anything goes wrong, they can drive over and kick the side of the wall and make sure the property's still there. So cool that we can buy mortgages and hold mortgages from all over the country, no matter where you live. In fact, you don't even have to be in this country. As long as you have internet access, this is a business that you can do from your smartphone or from your computer. And boy, is it a lot more passive. You see, people just tend to pay their mortgages, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. They try, at least, but here, I mean, listen, you just came into another caveat, right? The coolest part about this business is you make the rules, right? and to a certain extent, right? So there's big banks out there that can't change payment terms. You can work with that borrower to work within their budget. Something, God forbid, happens to that borrower. You can pick up the phone and actually bless that borrower and say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Borrower, you can't make the payment. Something happens. We just went through this COVID issue. What can you do? How can we help you? Maybe you could put the mortgage payments at the end of the loan. Maybe you could write off, maybe you could do a match. Every payment they make, you could match a payment. Maybe you could lower the interest rate. There's so many things you could do. You actually have the flexibility for truly change their life. Like my mission statement says, give people a second chance at a home while making an income in doing so. There's nothing wrong with that. So just think how powerful that is. Think how powerful that is. You control people's destiny, people's lives, and you could just be such a huge blessing for those people and actually make a lot of money in doing so. And not only make a lot of money, but actually live that passive to prosperous life that we talk about.
Yes. And he has a book, Passive to Prosperous. We're going to be getting into that here in a little bit, guys, because it's a great book. I think everybody needs to read. Just his theory of giving back and serving, right? So there's a responsibility level that comes with owning someone's mortgage that he's speaking about, right? And the beautiful thing about being a note investor is that as a personal note investor, we're not a big giant bank with several different layers of people to go through to get the right answers and so forth. And therefore we can have a wonderful piece of responsibility on our shoulders, which means that we can really, really help homeowners, guys, right? You can help keep people in their homes. And how important is that? Whoever wants to lose a house, get foreclosed on and change their lives like that because they got in a bad financial position. And I tell you, when you call Wells Fargo, they don't give a crud, man. They're all about the numbers, baby. And you're going to get the letter and they don't care about your sob stories. But see, people like Dan and I do, if you're a real person and you're ethical, you're dealing with people's lives here. You own their mortgage. And so there's so many different things that we can do as private investors that a bank won't do, meaning that we can bend over backwards to really help people and be extraordinarily ethical and not only get rewarded financially, folks, in this business, very passive financial reward in this business, but also, man, you're helping real people, real homeowners around the country, whereas maybe Wells Fargo would have sloughed them off and just moved forward on some certain things that would have been really bad for that homeowner. And we can take a different route because we have the power and the control in the bank's shoes. Folks, we're going to be right back, take our first commercial break here, but we'll be back with more of Dan Zitovsky, the author of Passive to Prosperous. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, welcome to Fire Up Connect. Are you a small business owner? Do you lack the resources to manage your business? Is visibility and brand awareness a top priority for you? Fire Up Connect is a community of small business owners. We help our members find the right connections and the right resources to help them be successful. This isn't your typical business networking group. Members of Fire Up Connect are innovative, driven, and all about building long-lasting relationships. We work to identify your goals and understand what it is you do and how we can help you brand yourself and your business. Fire Up Connect is about creating business opportunities, community projects, educational sessions, and live seminars to help implement effective marketing programs for our members. Fire Up Connect helps members gain validation in their businesses, learn what challenges similar business leaders are facing, and access to subject matter experts on how to overcome these challenges. Fire Up Connect offers opportunities for organic exposure through our many marketing events, programs, and projects. There are 4 colors that make up Fire Up Connect. Yellow represents the back office and services available to Fire Up Connect members. Red represents Fire Up Connect's marketing and advertising resources, such as TV shows, radio, magazine book publication, and movie projects. Green represents Fire Up Connect's referral system, tracking incentives, and blue represents Fire Up Connect's donation, fundraising, and scholarship programs. Fire Up Connect members have access to monthly business sessions, price discounts on affiliated companies, and all Fire Up Connect programs, book publications, published articles for your business, access to Fire Up Connect scheduled webinar events, a photo shoot session, and a video production. Join us for our annual Fire Up Live seminars and gain valuable connections in the Fire Up community and boost your business. We believe in your business. We believe in what you do. At Fire Up Connect, we believe in you. Join us for our annual Fire Up Live seminars to gain, discover, and get fired up.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Notes, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, KCAA radio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Welcome back, folks, to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA Radio. I knew that you weren't going anywhere because if you listen to the last segment, Dan Zatofsky and I were talking about passive income, creating a prosperous lifestyle, and being able to utilize note investing, mortgage note investing, as the vehicle to get you there. So I knew you were still going to be here, folks, and we're back with Dan Zatofsky, author of Passive to Prosperous. Right. And we're going to talk about his book here later in the show. But we were ending that last segment talking about why note investing can be more passive and allow you to live a more prosperous and free lifestyle. Right. But here's one of the things I always get, Dan, when I tell people about mortgage notes. Tell them you're going to own someone's mortgage and they're going to pay you the mortgage payment every month. And people who are new to this say, well, what if they don't pay? Right. And there's always some animosities. It sounds too good to be true that you can actually become the bank and just collect mortgage payments. And so here's what I tell folks, Dan, see if you agree. I say, listen, if you buy one of these mortgage notes, folks, okay, you invest into a mortgage note, they transfer that responsibility to you. And now you're going to go move forward by collecting the rest of someone's mortgage payments, right? Okay. So there's really three things that can happen, folks, if you buy a mortgage note. See if you agree, Dan. Number one, they could pay you as agreed. Let's say you buy a note that still has 20 years left of mortgage payments on it. One of the things that could happen, folks, is the people pay their mortgage payment on time every month for the next 20 years. That could happen. And if that does happen, folks, you're making a better than average yield. You have an investment that's protected, or shall we say collateralized, and it spits off monthly cash flow. Who doesn't want that for 20 years straight on one investment, right? So that's okay. That'd be fine. Another thing that may happen, you know, people sometimes sell their houses and go and retire in Florida, don't they? Sometimes people refinance their existing mortgage loan with a new bank because they don't like their interest rate or who knows what, right? And so, folks, if somebody sold their house and you owned the mortgage, somebody refinanced with a new bank, what we receive is called early payoff. And that means all of the money they owe you, they have to pay you right then. Now, we buy these notes at a discount. I'm not going to get into confusing people at that. But bottom line, folks, is usually if they sell the house or they refinance their mortgage, it generally actually increases our yield as note investors. And it's not always a bad day. Sometimes we call that a windfall profit, and we take all that money in profit and we go buy some more notes with it, right? That's okay. Would that be fine? Yes. Here's the one everyone's afraid of, right, Dan? Yeah, but what if they stop paying the mortgage, man? You invested this money and now you're not collecting cash flow. And well, guys, remember, you're the bank. So I'm going to just ask the audience this. What do you think happens if you own a home and you owe money on your mortgage to Wells Fargo and you as the homeowner don't pay your mortgage for 3 or 4 months? What do you think Wells Fargo does? Well, I'll tell you what, folks. Remember in the last segment, we told you that you voluntarily pledged your home as collateral to the bank. Okay, you voluntarily pledged your home as collateral to the bank. So they say, well, if you don't pay us, by the terms of that promissory note we filled out, if you don't pay us, then we're just going to take your house. And I got to tell you something, folks, even though that's our last resort as private investors, private note investors, it's our last resort. I don't want to foreclose on people. You do have that as an option, but we can try loan modifications and all sort of different things to avoid that. But the bottom line, folks, is sometimes we may have to foreclose on somebody. Sometimes we may have to take back a property. I'll tell you what, Usually when we're investing in these notes, the property is worth far more than what you've invested to get the note. And so essentially it would be a bad day for the homeowner, but a good day for the note investor if you had to foreclose. Okay. So, folks, those are the three things that might happen to you. They'll pay as agreed, they'll pay you off early, or they'll stop paying. All three of those scenarios generally work out very well for the note investor. And that's why we fall in love with this, right, Dan?
Oh, 100%.
That's why we fall in love. Now, Dan, let's just get into a little of your story, right? Because, you were saying how people get into wholesaling and then people get into flipping, and this is kind of the progression in real estate. Well, you've done pretty much all of it, right? And then you gravitated towards notes. And why? Can you give us like your background story and how you got into real estate investing? And really, I know that story about you, Dan, that I just heard this weekend, in fact, at the Noteworthy conference in Anaheim. Shout out to Noteworthy. But, you have a great story that says, you worked so hard and made so much money, but it took away maybe from your lifestyle, maybe took away even from your family relationships and things like that. And when you found notes, it changed your whole life. Can you give me that story?
Sure. Well, in growing up, and I'll make that part a little quick. In growing up, it wasn't an easy life. It wasn't a good life. I'm not rags to riches, but it was a very tough life. And I always thought, one day I'm going to get rich and I'm going to be happy, right? And I got into the real estate game. I bought my first property 18 years old. I bought it with a credit card. Then I went into the Navy. I came out of the Navy. I was a police officer. I started building up a rental and a fix and flip portfolio. And while I was doing that, I started seeing flips making me $40, $50 to $80,000 a flip. And I was doing 30 to 50 flips easily a year, consistently, sometimes more flips. A lot of my flips were making north of $100,000. So you can see that multiple seven-figure years added up pretty quickly. The problem is I did that and I was a police officer, and I said, I'm going to do this until I don't have to be a police officer anymore, because I just didn't want to do that. Then I was involved in 9/11. I was in the second building that crashed down. And I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I had to get out. So I really expedited my fix and flipping business tremendously. And I was making, like I said, a lot of money on that. But what happened is I grew up, didn't have the nice things, didn't have the car, didn't have any cars. I had to buy my own car at 14. I had to pay for myself to do everything. I had to go out, I had to give my own money. Go to college, I had to pay for myself. Anything I wanted, I had shoes, clothes, and I'd get the basic, and that was it. You're on your own. So I always had to, I always swore to myself, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to be happy. Well, what happens is I started making a lot of money, right? I started making multiple seven figures a year. And with that, I started doing what a lot of young people do that make that kind of money, right? I started showing off. I started buying the beautiful cars, the watch collection, right? The boats, just everything I could do to show off, right? To show people, hey, look at me. I'm rich now. I make a lot of money and I'm happy. I'm living the average. I'm living that, not the average, I'm living the better than average life for most American families. I have a beautiful house in a country club golf course. Got everything you could imagine. But to the point of, I still remember the story. It was a Sunday night. We're out to dinner it was 4 couples. And we get to dinner on a Sunday night at like 6:30 at night. And I had to take a call from the realtor and the contract. We were supposed to close the deal the next day, and it was blowing up. So with the inspections, I had to take a call. 6:30 at night, I'm outside. My wife is in dinner with 3 other couples, and I'm outside talking on the phone the whole time. She comes out at almost 9 o'clock, throws my bag at me, and says, here's your expletive dinner, right? Enjoy it. And right away, I'm like, whoa, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm doing this for you, right? I'm busting my butt working, making all this money so you could have vacations, you could have cars, you could have jewelry, you could have everything you want, a beautiful house. You don't have to work. You take care of the kids. You could do that. And I'm busting my butt, and you're going to do this to me. So we had a blown out hardcore fight. And I remember her saying to me at that point when we were home, and she says, a lot of things were said. We don't go through that. A lot of things were said. And she basically got to the point where she says, you're not a good husband. You're not a good father. You're not there for anybody. And I just blew up. I said, I'm not there. I'm doing all this for you. I'm busting my butt working, flipping all these houses, dealing with all this crap and this stress and headaches so you could have a good life, so you could have all these cars, so you could have a boat, so you could have every jewelry, you could have everything you want. And she just turned around and says, we didn't want any of this. All we wanted was you. And says, you're a terrible husband, terrible father, all of that stuff. You're not there for the kids. You're not there for me. You're there for yourself. And you know what? If I was being honest, she was right. She was right. If I look in the mirror, and I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it, she was right. Yeah. And I was doing it to buy things to impress people that didn't really matter in my life. The ones who would matter were my kids, to be there, to raise them as a father, to be a man for my kids and raise them and show them what a father is, show them what a husband is and father is. Well, that kind of dropped to my knees at that point, and I'm not a sensitive guy, but hysterical crying, like, I don't know what to do now, right? I'm a bad father, I'm a bad husband. I thought I was great. What do I do? Because I don't want to go back to the police department. I don't want to work a job for $50,000 a year. I can't do that. All I really knew how to do to make a lot of money was flip houses. Well, then I started converting them, right? I started saying, well, what do I really want? I got with Mike, what do I really want? And he asked, and I said, I really want to do this so I can live the life I want to live. Well, what does that life look like? What is your why? Well, my why is, and my vision is to do what I want, when I want, with whomever I want. Well, how can you really do that if you're working 80 to 100 hours a week flipping these houses, right? So your vision says this, but your actions say this. You're going way off in left field, right? You're not aligned. And even when I coach students, that's exactly what I coach them on. It's the same thing. We bring them back to alignment, right? You got to be in alignment with your vision and your why. So I started doing rentals, and I always tell people, I said, listen, and I'll take it at the bare minimum numbers. I said, listen, if it wasn't at least $40,000 a property, I didn't flip it. I would wholesale it. So let's say 40,000 is kind of sexy. $400 is about the minimum I make on a rental property, or a note, I should say. Well, it says $40,000. Would you rather have 40,000 or would you rather have $400? And almost everybody says, oh, that 40,000 is a lot more sexy. And I go, I get it. But when you do $400 a couple of hundred times, it gets pretty damn sexy when you can do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. Mm. The way to do that is to get into the note business, to really get into the note business. Now, I do have a rental portfolio. 2/3 of my portfolio is seller finance notes, and 1/3 is rental properties. But my rental properties are kind of legacy properties that I keep for the family. But it's very important to have a plan, right? So a lot of people go at this without a plan. They just like, oh, I'm going to go buy single family rentals. And then, well, I saw some guru talking about, own one roof and own 100 doors, get a multifamily. And then what do? You're working your butt off for investors. That's all you're doing. They're taking 70, 80%. You're taking 20, 30%. You're doing all the work. You're on all the management calls. You're doing the turnovers. You're dealing with the banks. You're dealing with the investors. That wasn't sexy. So 2019, I sold 800 of my doors, right? So it basically came down to all I own now is single family homes, and 2/3 of them are seller finance notes that pay me money every single month. And if you set these up correctly, we talk about risk, and obviously you never can tell people there's no risk. You legally can't tell the people that there is risk. You could lose your money. Do your due diligence, check with your attorney, check with your accountant. Don't trust anything anyone says, trust and verify. But the only thing I ever guarantee to anybody and any investor I work with that works with me, I always tell them this: I will mitigate the risk the best I possibly could because I'm a due diligence freak, but I can't guarantee anything. So when you get in the note business, if you get involved in a program, and I know you guys teach an amazing program, Patrick, you and Desi, if you get involved with note educators that have done this before for years and have seen the caveats that come up, they can VIP you to the fast lane on learning how to mitigate your risk.
Yes, guys. And thank you, Dan, for plugging. I'll plug the university later in the show, but guys, he's telling you that he wanted to create a better life for himself and his family. And you're not going to do that if you're working 80 to 100 hours a week. And so we're talking about how to go get yourself passive income so that you can live that prosperous life that you really want and actually spend time with your family. Ain't that right? So we're going to be right back with more of Dan Zitofsky, the author of Passive to Prosperous, here in just a few minutes, folks. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA. Notes, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, KCAA radio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Alrighty, folks. Hey, listen, welcome back. And listen again, I know you didn't go anywhere. There's no way you could. We're just talking too much good stuff here. Too many good nuggets coming from Dan Zitofsky, the author of the book, Passive to Prosperous. And you know, this is the Real Men of Real Estate Radio Show. We're here on KCAA Radio, the second Sunday of every month. So put it on your calendar because I'm going to continue to have just amazing guests on here. And we're blessed to have the Dan Zitofsky. We just ended the last segment talking about how you transitioned from really having to work so much while making so much money that you realize that you can buy the cars, the fancy watches and such like this, but even your family was going, yeah, but you're not even around for us. And so you had to make some changes. One of those changes you made was to go and invest into mortgage notes. And because you realized that maybe to you, like we said earlier, $450 a month that hits the mailbox every month on the 3rd is more sexy than a $40,000 hit when you do a house flip. But why is that, right? You said you had to do it a few times. So if you do the $400 a month, $450 a month passive cash flow, oh, I don't know, folks, let's say 100 times, it starts to look pretty sexy, right, Dan?
100%, 100%. So, because, and for me, it really came down to it came down to this point. What did I want? Why was I doing what I was doing, right? If you ask a lot of people, why do you want it? When I coach them, I always, so what's your vision? Well, I want to get out of my 9 to 5. I don't like it. Or I want to retire my spouse, or I want to pay for my kids' college. But all you're doing when you house flip or you're wholesaling, you're really giving yourself, you employ yourself in another job. Anything transactional is you're employing yourself in another job. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it if that's really what you want. Now, I have people come to me and they say, I just need to make a certain amount of money because I want to buy vacations, or I want to buy cars, or I want to pay for my kids' college. It's not about living that lifestyle. But when somebody comes to me and they said, my vision is to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, well, then you have to back it out. And you don't have to make as much money. And I always tell people, don't worry about Dan Zitofsky. Don't worry about the deals I have because I'm already done. Worry about what works for you and just back it out. If I say it's $400 a month and you want to make $8,000 a month passively, that's only 20 deals. That's only 20 deals, right? Now imagine you did 200 deals. And it's not as crazy as you think. 1 turns to 2, turns to 4. The note business is one of those things where you really don't have to go crazy. I mean, there's ability to buy multiple amount of deals. There's a lot of ways to do this. And we're not going to get into the weeds of how to do this, because that's something you guys teach. But it's why do you want to do notes? And for me, it came down to, right, why doing this? Well, because if I align myself and I stay laser focused, and I just tell people, stay laser focused on your vision. My vision said, I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And that's why I get to travel around the world, being on the boat all summer, being on the beach, being with my friends, being with my family, and not have to answer to anybody. And if I don't want to do a deal, I don't have to do a deal because the payments are still coming in as long as people want to stay in their house.
I'd be willing to bet $1 million cash that it's probably easier to do 200 note deals than it is to flip 200 houses.
Oh, yeah. I'd give you 10 times odds on that one because, it's 100%.
Now, so you authored a book, right? And it's not easy to do. It's a huge undertaking, right? And, you did this book because you are one that believes very much so in giving back and serving the community, right? So what was in your mind when you said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and write this book? What prompted you to do so? And how can that book help people to understand how passivity in their life and passive income can create that prosperous life they want?
Well, I wanted to get this out there because so many people had asked me how I'm doing what I'm doing, right? They just, and that's why it's like you with education, right? People hear about it, but they just don't know how to do it. So when I had publishers coming to me, they heard me speaking at events, and they said, Dan, we want you to write a book. And they have all these caveats for a book. They want it to be so many pages, and they want it to be bigger, and they want it to be fluff. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's not why I'm doing a book. You don't do a book to make money unless you're like Clancy and you're a novelist. And that's not what I'm doing. I said, I want to put a book out there so people could, my first section is my why. Maybe that resonates with somebody. In any business, it's the why. Why do I do what I do? It doesn't even talk about the business at all other than my why. And then the rest of my book goes through the how-tos on my business. And if you take step by step on the how-to, anything that you don't know is in that book. Now, obviously, it's a chapter by chapter by chapter. So you might not learn how to do the business from start to finish, but you're going to learn how to raise private money, how to build teams in emerging markets, how to find the right deals, what type of deals you should do, how to do a note, what hypothecation, what partials look like, because something in there is going to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. And now I want to dig deeper. I want to learn further on what I want to do. But man, when we came through this business, I'm doing this now 32 years. There was not anything on social media. There was no videos. There was no mentorships, right? I remember going to an event and they sold a couple tapes, right? There was no mentorship. There was nothing. Now there's so much info. There's information at your fingertips like that. Sometimes too easy. People don't take it serious. There's great mentors out there that'll mentor you in exactly what you want to do. So it's like, so I want to put the book out there so you can realize, okay, if prosperity is what you want, passive to prosperous income, this is the truest passive income you can get, be in the bank. You don't get any truer passive income than that. Okay. If you want to live that prosperous life, here it is. And that's why I said, I'm going to put it in a book so I can open people's eyes. And then they can say, you know what? I want to do note investing. So I'm going to go to Patrick, and Patrick, I'm going to learn note investing from you. And that's really what it's about. So, and get the VIP lane. But the first thing you have to do is you have to learn why you're doing this. What is your why? What is your personal why? And really be specific on the amount of money you need to make, the amount of time you have, okay, what your resources are, what your genius zone is, what you are good at, what you're not good at, what you like, what you don't like. And once you do, there is mentors that can help you. If you said, I want to be a fix and flipper, there's mentors for that. If you want to be a wholesaler, there's mentors for that. If you want to be a landlord, there's mentors for that. If you want to be a note person, I mean, geez, you guys are coaching a great program, The Note Person. Be a note investor. But just figure out what you want to do. But please don't do this. Don't say you want to live that passive income lifestyle and then turn around and do a job, transactional, wholesaling properties to make $20,000 per property. And next month, if you don't wholesale a deal, you make no money. So you really never get to hang out with your family. And I always tell people this, if you can't do what I do, and I'm not saying this to impress you, it's really to impress upon you. If you cannot take off all summer without answering your phone, without checking your email, then you do not have a passive to prosperous business. You created a job, maybe a high-paying job for yourself, but is that what your vision said you wanted to do? And if it is, so be it. But if your vision says you want to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, then you really need to rethink about what you're doing. And there is no better business. I've done everything in the real estate space. There's no better business than being the bank.
It's interesting you say that, man, because, I feel as if even the word the term passive income has like very much been bastardized across all industries, because it's like, dude, everybody talks about passive income. And then when you get into whatever it is that they're talking about creates passive income, you realize it's more work than your full-time job was. And you're going, this is not very passive. And people think passive income can come from being a landlord. And I'm telling you right now, it's not very passive. It's just not. And so if you want to accumulate, the comparison, let's say you want to accumulate a giant portfolio of rental properties. You have 50 rental properties. You go, yeah, well, I got a property management company that handles all that. I guarantee you're managing your property management company. Okay. Am I right? It's not passive. You're going to get all the phone calls. You're going to have to do this, do that to get repairs done and figure out, clean outs and everything else. When one tenant moves out and another tenant moves in, it's just a little bastardized. It's just not that passive. And even mortgage note investing isn't 100% passive, but I'll tell you what, Dan, do you agree with me or not? I think that note investing, becoming the bank and collecting mortgage payments from homeowners each month is about as passive as it gets, if we want to be real.
100. You're right. And mortgage note business isn't passive up front, right? But it's a path to get passive. Now, I have a pretty large rental portfolio too. And I understand that's not passive, right? I do get passive income. I do get income from it monthly, but there's always something that comes up, right? There's always a phone call. I don't handle it. So I have people that handle it, but I have to handle those people, right? So it's not passive. With the mortgage notes business, what I do is I take my rental portfolio for the most part and I create mortgage notes. So I go as a little differently. I don't just buy non-performing or performing notes. I take an asset and I create a note, all right? I mean, you could create a note on a watch if you want. I just like it on real estate. I like it on single family houses in emerging markets that fit my niche. And I like it to be a certain number. So yeah, I have to do the work up front, which I'm willing to do. But then I turn it into a passive income. I'm not willing to do the work up front to make $100,000 on the deal anymore. I'm willing to do the work up front to make $400 or $500 a month. Because I know if I do that 10 times, that's another $4,000 or $5,000 a month. $4,000 or $5,000 a month does a lot for me. Right? I'm sure it could change people's lives. And I'm keeping the numbers at really low levels. And when you get into the hundreds of properties, it gets really sexy. It gets really sexy, right? when you could travel around the world, you could do whatever you want. You don't have to answer a phone. You could hang it. I mean, geez, this morning I got up, we got home from the trip. I got up a little, I went to the gym. I spent 3.5 hours there because I was just hanging out, talking to people. I ran, I worked out, I went on the massage table, and I came home and I get to do these calls.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I enjoy it. This is passion for me, right? Doing these calls, doing coaching calls with students. That's passion for me, right? Going out to dinner tonight with my wife, that's passion for me, right? Going to my coach's training tomorrow. I get to do that. From there, I get to go to Rhode Island and coach somebody else. From there, I go to Connecticut and I go to a spa. From there, I go to a party this weekend. From there, I'm going to Arizona to another speaking event. What I'm saying is I would never be able to do that. So people are like, well, you're busy. I'm busy doing what I want to do. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Like people think I'm going to be busy and do real estate deals and grind it because that makes me successful, right? I'm crushing it. I'm busy. But are you busy doing what you want to do? Now I'll work 20 hours a day doing exactly these interviews, speaking at events, coaching students on life. Really, what I coach was on life first before anything else. And that's my life. That's the passive to prosperous life I'm talking about. So just go in this. I mean, if we went on a road trip and you drove, you would take a navigation system. So by getting in a coaching program, if you want to learn notes and you guys are teaching them notes, you're going to teach them, depending on what they want. They might want first. They might want performing notes. They might want to do seconds. They might want non-performing notes. You guys are going to coach them on what they want. So it's not the same for everybody. You're not going to say, well, you guys have to do this because that's what we do. So you're going to really limit and zone in on what you guys do and what I do. But that's the true why.
And I hope you guys heard this. All you real estate investors listening to this, I hope you heard what he just said. There is a direct correlation with real estate and notes. And so if you don't know notes, you don't understand the paper side of real estate, you're doing yourself a disservice as a real estate investor. And we're going to get more into that as soon as we get back from this commercial break. And I know you ain't going nowhere. So we'll be right back in a few minutes, folks. Hang on a few minutes and I'll see you in a minute. Bye.
Real Men of Real Estate.
Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA.
Notes, mortgages can be purchased.
All of us want to live in thriving communities.
Basically, go to the radio station, KCAA radio.com.
You can find us on your dial at 102.3 FM, 1050 AM, as well as 106.5 FM.
Folks, welcome back here to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA Radio. Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor, your host, and I'm back with Dan Zitovsky, the author of Passive to Prosperous, a book you're definitely going to have to get after listening to this show. But we were just talking about the correlation, right, between real estate and notes. And we're going to kind of end that summary and get into how you can get Dan's book, maybe get a hold of Dan and talk to you a little bit about how you can learn note investing. But, if you're a real estate investor, you're doing fix and flips and you're owning rentals and this kind of thing, it goes hand in hand that you must understand the paper side of real estate. You just heard Dan saying he's creating a very, very passive and prosperous lifestyle by taking physical real estate and doing what's called seller financing. And so he's putting homeowners into his real estate rather than renters, and he's helping people own homes that maybe couldn't because they can't get a home loan from Wells Fargo or Chase Bank. But Dan will give them one, isn't that right?
Exactly. We'll either give it to the homeowners or we'll give it to, generally what I do more of is I put tenants in them. I rehab those properties to the highest level. I'll put tenants in them, good quality tenants in them, and I'll sell them off to investors that want to build a rental portfolio for themselves on seller financing. So that's kind of how my business model, but yes, I do homeowners as well. But for the most part, it's really investors that want to own rental properties. So,
and there's two things I want to cover, right? One of them was a statement that I heard you say, and we covered it a little bit, but I love the way you said it when you spoke over the weekend at Noteworthy up in Anaheim. And one of the things you said was, I was out there buying fancy cars because I was trying to impress the person next to me at the stoplight that didn't give a crud about me. I don't know if I butchered that or not, but it was like, wow, that hits home to me.
Because we do that. We put ourselves in tremendous amount of debt, right? To show off, to really build our own. All we're doing is building our own ego. We're not doing, because when I talk to people and I say, well, why are you doing what you're doing? Nobody has really ever told me I just want to buy a Lamborghini. But when you go out and you buy the Lamborghini or your Ferrari or your Bentleys or Aston Martins, whatever it is that we've bought before, that's not what it's about, right? So we put ourselves in tremendous amount of debt, right? And then we got to work harder flipping properties because when I met with you, you told me you want time to do what you want. You never said, I want to stop working so I can buy a Lamborghini and not be around for my kids. That's not what nobody's ever told it to me yet. I've probably mentored close to 1,000, if not more than 1,000 people. Nobody's told me that one time. So essentially, almost every single time somebody's told me anything, it's because they want to leave their job. They want to leave a legacy. They want to have time with their family. They want to take vacations. They want to not have to worry about bills. They want to not worry about bills, but they're signing on a note for $2,500 a month to get a car to stop at a stoplight so someone could look over at them and go, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I always say the car is cool until it loses a giggle. And they lose their giggle pretty quick. Watches don't even get a giggle.
And so guys, I mean, folks listening out there, this is why, I'm excited that I'm excited to urge you to go and get a copy of Dan's book. It's called Passive to Prosperous. And, who doesn't want to learn from somebody like Dan, folks? I mean, that he has 30 years of experience. He's flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes. He's been a landlord. He still is a landlord, but he found a better way in becoming the bank and being able to have a very passive lifestyle, still very high level of income, folks, but it comes in passively. So again, he can spend the entire summer hanging out with his friends and his family and be on his boat. And who doesn't want to be able to have a life like that? So I highly suggest that you get his book, Passive to Prosperous by Dan Zatofsky. And if they do want to go and get your book, Dan, how would they go about doing so?
Well, they can go right to Amazon and get it. In fact, I know the show is launching soon, and it'll be out for some time. People get to see it. But what I did is, since I'm speaking at, I think, about 14 events from 2 weeks ago till Easter, I actually had it on Amazon lowered to the lowest possible cost, like $6.97 or something. From like $24. So just because I want to get it in people's hands. Obviously, it's not about we don't make money on books. Nobody does. But I said, you know what? Let me lower it to the lowest possible cost I can make it. So you can get this book from Amazon till I think around Easter time for $6.97. And that's it. Just go to Amazon, go to Passive Prosperous, and you'll see the book. Pick it up. Just give us feedback. All I want you to do is take a picture with yourself afterwards, send it to me. Tag me, let me see it. I want to hear your biggest takeaways, your biggest nugget, because that's what's in it for me. I love hearing people's stories and how it might have opened their eyes, or it's like, hey Dan, I'm changing what I'm doing, or I'm going to do this, or it's just your why is so powerful with me. It's helped me open my eyes to my family, and that's what it's about. That's me living in abundance. That's why I do what I do. So
folks, $6, $7, I'll round it up. $7, guys. I mean, $7. Go to Amazon, everybody. If you're listening right now, when you turn your radio off, you're going to Amazon and you're going to buy Passive to Prosperous for less than $7, guys. And here's what's crazy. I guarantee you, folks, that there's something in that book that will allow you to start changing your life for the better. I can guarantee it. I'll put my word. So you got to go get that under $7, Passive to Prosperous by Dan Zatofsky. Well, what an amazing thing he's done. It was $24, man. So, to all you folks that bought his book for $24, I know it changed your life too, but now you folks listen to this radio show, go get it for less than $7. I mean, come on. Now, let's say they got a question for you, Dan. Do you let anybody reach out via email, social media, anything like that? If they said, man, I really want to talk to that guy, Dan.
Yeah, what I do is obviously social media. I'm pretty big on Facebook. Facebook personal page only allows you to have 5,000 contacts. We keep hitting that, obviously. So we can't bring anyone else in. What they could do is go to Become a Real Estate Investor with Dan Zatofsky. That's a free page. It allows you to have a limited amount of people. Go on there, get on there, shoot me a message. I answer every message, just so you know, myself personally. Or if they need, they could even go to my email. It's Dan@Zatofsky Capital Management, all spelled out.com. I know it's a long name, Dan@Zatofsky Capital Management.com. Email me. That could take a little delayed because I travel a lot. But once again, I answer all my messages myself. I don't have anybody else answer those. That's something I'm very specific about in my business, is that I want to answer all those messages myself because I want to make sure that it stays personal. I'll never give that to a staff member to answer. So those are a couple of ways to get a hold of me. You could also go to Instagram under my name, Dan Zatofsky. Jump in there, follow me there. I don't put as much stuff out as there. And we have a YouTube channel as well on the Zatofsky Capital Management. So we try to put some of our videos on there as well. So there's a lot of places to get a hold of me. I'll answer your questions as best I could. And you know the answer is going to come from me directly.
So guys, reach out, folks. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's such a fantastic guy. I had the opportunity to, again, hang out with him just over some time at an event, and just giving back and trying to get people to understand that they have the ability to create a passive and prosperous lifestyle. So go get his book, Passive to Prosperous, on Amazon, less than $7. Find Dan Zitovsky and Zitovsky Capital Management and such on social media, and become a part of this guy's life, folks. And listen, if you really, really want to learn all the intricacies involved in note investing and becoming the bank, go to the noteinvestoruniversity.com website, join our mastermind group, join our master's program. We have a place for everybody. But again, you know, folks like Dan and I, we're just trying to give back. We've learned something that has changed our lives for the better and allowed us to live passively and prosperously. And now we have a fiduciary responsibility to pay that back. So folks, I hope you enjoyed our show. I hope you enjoyed my guest, Dan Zitovsky. And we are going to just wish you a very happy rest of your Sunday. And I'll see you next time.
KCAA, where every day is a great day.
Tehillah